Welcome back in. Today we're discussing our top 12 defenses for the week. Plus, we're going to give you 4 streaming options. So let's go ahead and get right into it. We're going to start things off with the Chiefs. The Chiefs play the Raiders at home on Black Friday, and they get an early present under the tree with Gardner Minshew now going down with a broken collarbone. Desmond Ritter is expected to be the starter, and that's excellent news for the Chiefs defense. While the Chiefs have really struggled to get pressure this season, the Raiders have allowed 3.3 sacks per game, which is the third highest rate, as well as the second most fantasy points defense this season, making the Chiefs easily the number 1 defense on the week. Next up is the Houston Texans. The Texans are currently the DST 5 on the season. They lead all defenses with 42 sacks that have created pressure on 27% of dropback, which is the 7th highest rate in the league. They also cause a turnover on 14% of opposing offensive drives, which is the 7th highest rate. This game sets up nicely for the Texans as the Jags have a -8 turnover differential this season, which ranks 28th in the league. Next up is going to be the Denver Broncos. Surprise, surprise. They continually be one of the biggest surprises this season. While Bo Nix has been very good, it's their defense that deserves a ton of credit. They are currently the DST3, averaging 9.4 fantasy points per game. They create a ton of pressure, the 5th highest rate, which has led to 39 sacks, which just trails the Texans. They've also done a decent job creating turnovers. They rank 12th in turnovers, and now this week, the Broncos take on Jameis Winston and the Browns. The Browns allow the most sacks per game. While Jameis is certainly one of the more exciting fantasy quarterbacks, he is certainly turnover prone. The Browns allow the 3rd most fantasy points to opposing defenses this season. The Broncos should be a pretty safe bet again this weekend. Now, let's move over to some of my streaming options this week. First, we're going to start with the Buffalo Bills. The 49ers lost Brock Purdy to a shoulder injury last week, and it remains to be seen how long he'll be out. If he's forced to miss this week, the Bills would be one of the top defenses this week. The Bills are the DST 8 on the season. They are creating a sack on 18% of offensive drives and creating a pressure on highest rate. The Bills are only rostered about 50% of leagues right now and should be added as they are a top 5 defense this week against this 49ers team, especially if Brandon Allen's going to be the starter. Let's move over to the Seattle Seahawks, and they get a matchup against the Jets. The Jets are an absolute dumpster fire right now, to be honest with you. I'm not even sure what's going to happen with Aaron Rodgers at this point. There's been some reports out there that they might place him on IR. He's dealing with some injuries on his own right, but this team is an absolute mess. It looks like they're going to be cleaning house after this season, and rightfully they should. But if that were to happen, they do have Tyrod Taylor, who's a decent backup quarterback, but still, Seattle's defense has really turned the corner since they traded for Ernest Jones. The Seahawks have 2 or more sacks in 7 games this season and have the 11th highest pressure rate this season. So, and not to mention, the Jets' offensive line is an absolute mess as well. So I do really like the Seahawks this week. I think they're a borderline top 5 defense this week, and they're also averaging about 7 fantasy points per game. So I do really like Seattle this week. Next up is the Dallas Cowboys. The Cowboys produced their best game of the season on the defensive side of the ball against the Commanders. They had 4 sacks, 2 INTs, and a kick return for a touchdown. They also added another defensive touchdown for 22 fantasy points this past week against the Commanders. This week, the Cowboys get a great matchup against Tommy DeVito and the Giants, who have allowed the 4th most fantasy points to opposing defenses. So I am perfectly okay with firing up the Cowboys this week against the Giants. Lastly, we're going to talk about the Rams. The Rams and their aggressive defense has paid off this season, as they are now the DST 8 on the year. They have registered 3 or more sacks in 4 straight games and have 11 turnovers over the past 5 games. This week, the Rams get a quality matchup against the Saints, who have yielded the 12th most fantasy points to defenses this season. So that being said, let us know in the comments section below if you have any questions, who you're looking to start. If you have to drop somebody, let us know. We'll be sure to answer that for you. Have a great Thanksgiving, and we'll see you on the next one.